Welcome to the Next Thought podcast, where we unpack curated insights from the world's most impactful thinkers, books, and mental models, all in under 20 minutes. So, today we're diving into something that I think, well, it really could change how you look at things, like how you approach your life, your work, everything, really. We're tackling the 80-20 principle, The Secret to Achieving More with Less by Richard Koch, a really foundational book for so many people. Okay, so let's get into it. The main idea, it, it sounds simple, right? But it's actually pretty counterintuitive when you dig in.
Definitely.
Basically, like a small number of things, inputs, causes, whatever, they lead to most of the results, the vast majority.
Yeah, the 80-20 rule. And lots of people might already know it as Pareto's principle.
Right. And the origin story is quite interesting. This Italian economist, Vilfredo Pareto,
Back in the late 1800s, wasn't it?
yeah, he noticed something kind of specific in Italy about land ownership.
That about 80% of the land was owned by just 20% of the people.
Exactly. Which, might just seem like a stat on the surface.
Right, just an observation.
But the really powerful bit, I think, is how it busts that idea we have, that things should be balanced, like 50-50.
That 50-50 fallacy, Koch calls it in the book.
Yeah. We expect effort in equals results out proportionally, but this principle shows, nope, it's usually way out of balance.
A profound imbalance, actually.
And that's why understanding it is so incredibly powerful. It's like putting on a new pair of glasses.
It really is. And what Richard Koch does so well in the book is explore this dual nature of the principle. It's fascinating.
Dual nature. How so?
Well, it has these two appeals that seem almost opposite, but they work together. On one side, you've got the hard quantitative aspect, the stats, the proven pattern.
Okay, the efficiency side.
Exactly. It's all about increasing output, cutting costs, boosting efficiency. It really speaks to people who want to, get more out of life in a tangible way, get ahead.
The classic business application, maybe? Get more bang for your buck.
Pretty much. But then there's this other side, the softer, almost mystical aspect.
Okay, intriguing.
Yeah, it suggests there's this sort of underlying law in the universe. It pops up everywhere. And this side isn't about efficiency at all. It's about enhancing the quality of life, the depth, the things that make life truly worthwhile.
Ah, I see. So less about doing more about living better.
Precisely. And Koch's big contribution was taking it beyond just business. He applied it to, our whole lives, creating this kind of yin and yang.
Yin and yang, I like that.
Yeah, the hard efficiency focus actually frees you up. It gives you the time and energy to really invest deeply in the things that matter on that softer side. They complement each other.
That's a really important distinction because, I think I usually just jump to the efficiency part. But when you look through both lenses, wow, it is everywhere.
It really is.
In business, like you said, it's almost a cliche. 20% of products drive 80% of sales, or 20% of customers give you 80% of the profits.
Standard stuff in marketing and sales analysis.
But then you see it in society, too, like 20% of criminals responsible for 80% of crime value, or 20% of drivers causing 80% of accidents. It's kind of stark.
The patterns hold across different domains.
And even at home. This one got me. Like 20% of your carpets get 80% of the wear and tear.
Right near the doorway, probably.
Exactly. And the clothes thing, at 20% of your clothes, you wear 80% of the time. I definitely looked at my wardrobe differently after reading that.
Oh, yeah, me too. It's so true. And it connects to that whole winner-take-all thing you sometimes see.
Ah, okay. Explain that connection.
Well, think about someone like Steven Spielberg earning, $165 million back in '94? Or that lawyer, Joseph Jamil, making $90 million.
Wow. Huge numbers.
Right. They're a tiny fraction of people in their fields, but they capture this massive share of the rewards. It shows how, in competitive areas, huge leverage comes from being truly excellent at a very specific high-value thing, the vital few inputs.
So it's not just luck. It's about finding and mastering those key leverage points.
Exactly. Even though society often tries to level things out, this imbalance seems to just pop up again somewhere else. It's a persistent pattern, a few causes driving most results.
Okay, so finding those leverage points is key. That makes a lot of sense. So how do we actually do that? How do we use this principle day to day? Is it just intuition?
Good question. Koch actually lays out two main ways to apply it, practical methods.
Okay.
The first one is 80-20 analysis. This is the systematic, numbers-driven approach.
Right, digging into the data.
Exactly. You collect data, say, on your products, your customers, your projects, and you let the numbers show you the imbalance. He gives an example of an electronics company. They found that, get this, 82.9% of their profits came from just 6 segments. And those segments were only 26.3% of their sales.
Wow, that's specific and
Yeah.
really skewed.
Totally. And
Yeah.
having that hard data lets you make some pretty radical choices, like double down hard on those winners or maybe even cut the rest loose. It's surgical.
Okay, so that's great if you have the data and the means to analyze it. What about the rest of us? Or for things that aren't easily measured?
That's where the second method comes in, 80-20 thinking.
Thinking.
Okay.
Okay.
This is broader, more intuitive. You basically hypothesize an imbalance exists, and you act on that hunch without needing pages of spreadsheets.
So more like pattern recognition.
Yeah, exactly. It's faster, more accessible. It helps you just spot the few really important things happening and tune out the noise. Koch argues that for every insight you get from strict analysis, you can get pounds more through this kind of intuition.
That makes it feel much more usable in everyday life.
Right. Understanding both lets you be strategic. Use analysis when you can, use thinking when you need to be quick or the data isn't there. It's about training yourself to see where the real leverage is.
Okay, that clicks. And, Richard Koch himself really lived this, didn't he? His own stories are pretty compelling.
Absolutely. They show it's not just abstract theory.
Like his Oxford story. His tutor basically told him not to read books cover to cover.
Yeah. Only for pleasure. For study. Read the conclusion, then the intro, then just dip in. The tutor was essentially saying 80% of the value is in 20% of the pages.
Amazing. And Koch ran with it for exams too, right?
He did. Focused on maybe 20% of the likely topics, aiming to nail 80%, maybe even 100% of the questions. And apparently it worked wonders. He got a top degree with way less grind than others. He identified the vital few concepts.
Identifying the vital few. That seems to be the core. And it followed him into his career.
Big time. In consulting, he saw the founder, just one guy, taking home like 80% of the profits, even though he was less than 4% of the partners.
Whoa.
So what did Koch do? He and a couple of others saw the pattern, spun out, started their own firm, and they ended up capturing over 80% of the profits while doing less than 20% of the, quote, valuable work. It shows how aligning with or creating high-leverage situations changes everything.
And his investments too, that famous story.
Oh, yeah. A tiny slice of his portfolio, just 3 stocks, I think, like Filofax back in the day.
Right.
They generated something like over 80% of his total investment gains later on, which led to his advice. Choose a basket carefully, load all your eggs into it, and then watch it like a hawk.
Which really flies in the face of typical diversification advice.
It does. It suggests deep focus on a few high-conviction bets can be way more powerful. So yeah, his life story really backs up the principle across the board. Work, study, money.
It definitely sounds powerful for achieving success. But shifting gears a bit, how does this apply to, just living life? Managing our time, finding happiness. I imagine some listeners are thinking, okay, efficiency is great, but...
That's not all there is.
Right. And that's where Koch takes it next, into what he calls a time revolution. This moves beyond pure efficiency.
A time revolution.
Okay. The principle suggests that most of your real achievements, and importantly, most of your happiness, happen in short bursts of time. Maybe 20% of your time generates 80% of the good stuff.
80% of happiness from 20% of your time. That's quite a thought.
It is. And it makes traditional time management, detailed schedules, to-do lists seem like just tinkering. Koch says we're actually awash with time if we apply 80-20 thinking properly. We don't need to manage minutes. We need to transform how we allocate large chunks of our time. So less focus on squeezing more in, more focus on what we're actually doing with the time.
Precisely. He offers some cool insights.
Yeah.
Like, treat time as a friend, not an enemy rushing past. It'll come around again.
I like that. Less pressure.
Yeah. And maybe controversially, act less, action drives out thought. Spend more time thinking about the right actions.
Okay, that's counterintuitive again. We're always told to take action.
Right. And he also notes how the most productive time is often that last 20% before a deadline. Why? Because you're forced to focus only on what's essential.
Okay, yeah, the deadline pressure focus. So how do we use this?
He suggests identifying your happiness islands and your achievement islands.
Happiness islands.
Yeah, those specific, maybe short periods or activities where you feel disproportionately happy or fulfilled. And the same for achievement. When are you truly productive and impactful?
Find those 20% moments.
Exactly. And then the radical part. Do more of those. Multiply them. And, just as importantly, ruthlessly cut back or eliminate the 80% of stuff that yields little happiness or achievement.
Ruthlessly eliminate. That sounds tough.
It can be. But think about historical figures like William Gladstone, juggling politics with tons of other interests, or Edmund Wilson using postcards to fend off distractions. They were masters of selective focus, protecting their high-value time.
Okay, so it's about being incredibly selective. Which leads perfectly into crafting your life, right? Career, money, relationships.
Absolutely. For careers, Koch references that famous idea from General von Manstein about officers, the intelligent lazy.
Yes, I've heard of this. The smart people, who are also kind of lazy, find the easiest, most effective way.
That's the gist. They're suited for high command because they won't get bogged down in unnecessary effort. They find the 80-20 path to results. It suggests specializing. Find a small niche where you can be genuinely world-class, where your 20% effort yields massive results.
Find your unique leverage point in the market. And for money, it's similar to the investment story.
Pretty much. Recognize that wealth often comes from a few key decisions or investments, not from spreading your bets thinly everywhere. Find those high-potential opportunities.
Makes sense. And relationships. This seems really important. How does 80-20 apply there?
It's crucial, and maybe touches on that softer side again. The principle suggests 80% of the value, the joy, the support you get from relationships comes from maybe 20% of the people you know.
Only 20%?
Yeah. There's this idea, sometimes called the village theory, that we humans only have the capacity for a limited number of deep, meaningful connections, like maybe a couple of childhood best friends, a few core adult friends, key mentors, trusted colleagues. We fill these slots.
So trying to be close to everyone is basically impossible and probably unfulfilling.
Exactly. The advice is quality over quantity. Focus your energy on cultivating those few key alliances. Look for mutual enjoyment, respect, shared history, reciprocity, trust. Those are the relationships that deliver 80% of the value. Don't dilute your energy.
That really changes the perspective on networking, doesn't it? It's not about collecting contacts. It's about deep connection with a few. Okay, this is all incredibly powerful stuff, but I can hear potential criticism brewing. Does this focus on the vital few and ruthless elimination? Maybe encourage, I don't know, being a bit too harsh? Or maybe cutting corners where you shouldn't?
That's a really important nuance to discuss. Koch is very clear about this. That laziness or corner-cutting idea, it only applies to the efficiency dimension.
Okay, so for things that are just a means to an end.
Exactly. Chores, admin, tasks you have to do but don't love. Be ruthlessly efficient there. Find the shortcuts. UT.
But
For the life-enhancing stuff, deep relationships, personal growth, hobbies you love, creative pursuits. He says there's no limit to the effort or time that is appropriate. For those things, you take the scenic route, the deep dive. You invest fully.
okay. So it's about where you apply the efficiency mindset. Be lazy with the chores, be dedicated to the passions.
You got it. It prevents the principle from becoming purely about cold, hard optimization. Then there's the sustainability issue.
Right. Can you just keep milking the 20%?
No. You can't just overexploit the vital few. Think about overfishing the best spots. Eventually, they collapse. If you don't reinvest, let them recover. Same with skills, relationships, even productive work habits. They need ongoing nurturing and investment. You can't just take. You have to give back.
So it requires a long-term perspective.
Definitely. And finally, there's the idea of balance. While you should be unbalanced in cutting the low-value stuff, within the high-value, life-enhancing areas, some balance is good.
How so?
It's not about just repeating your peak happiness moment over and over. It's about finding complementary activities, things that add texture. Koch uses the analogy of hills in cycling. They make the flat parts more enjoyable. Variety within the vital few can enrich the experience.
Okay, so nuance is key. It's not just a simple formula.
Not at all. It's a powerful tool, but needs wisdom and application. Just pursuing efficiency makes it sterile. The real goal is using that freed up energy for a richer, happier, more meaningful life. Knowing when to be efficient and when to invest deeply.
That clarifies so much. It really brings the two sides, the hard and the soft, together. Okay, so wrapping this up for everyone listening, what's the big message here? The 80-20 principle, fundamentally, it's a lens, a powerful way to see where the real value lies in almost everything you do, and then a strategy to multiply that value by focusing your energy. It's a challenge, really. A challenge to maybe put aside some skepticism, some pessimism, and actually embrace the possibility of making real progress in your own life.
Progress is possible.
I love that quote by George Bernard Shaw. The reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man.
That fits perfectly.
Right. You don't need permission. You don't need to wait for anyone else. You can start using this framework, 80-20 thinking, right now, in your job, in your personal life. Look for those small islands, those fragments of your time and effort that generate the greatest achievement, the most happiness, the best service to others. Identify them.
And then multiply them.
Exactly. multiply them, and start shedding that other 80%, the worthless skin, as Koch calls it, of irrelevant activity that just drains your time and energy. You really can become a better, more effective, more useful, and fundamentally happier person by applying this. It's a path. Don't forget to subscribe to the Next Thought podcast.